Hello, good evening. Welcome to Storytelling with Puck, the weekend Wordle. We will, as always, start with the story.
Wake up. Splash face. Brush teeth. Put on clothes. Tie laces tight. Run. Get home. Take off clothes. Shower. Dry. Put on clothes. Tie the winds away. Drive. Enter office. Sit at desk. Open laptop. Write. Close laptop. Make coffee. Add splash of milk. No sugar. Drink coffee. Sit. Open laptop. Write. close laptop, drive, get home, eat, take off clothes, get into bed, sleep, wake up, splash face, brush teeth, put on clothes, tie laces tight, run, keep running, never stop running. Why are we still running? Trip. Laces weren't tight enough. Get home, take off clothes, wash away, cut, shower, dry, put on clothes, tie so tight, breathe, drive, get to office, sit at desk, open laptop, stare, keep staring. Smash face against desk. Close laptop, make coffee, add splash of milk, no sugar, drink coffee, sit, open laptop, write, close laptop, drive, get home, eat, take off clothes, get into bed, sleep, wake up, splash face, brush teeth, put on clothes, tie laces tight, sit, take off clothes, put on clothes, take off clothes, put on clothes, tie the winds away, drive, enter office, sit at desk, open laptop, close laptop, open laptop, close laptop, throw laptop, drive, get home, eat, take off clothes, get into bed, stare, take out phone, watch YouTube clip of rats, sleep, wake up.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Feel free to turn on your cameras and unmute yourselves while Stefano gets his breath back. Now that we know what he does with his days. Didn't realize watching YouTube videos of rats was
fun.
Your time.
Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for the weekend Wordle of Storytelling with Puck. I think we have one or two more people coming a bit later, and maybe a few people watching on YouTube as well. But happy Saturday, and thank you for coming on a Saturday. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Bit exhausted after your story.
Same here.
How do you think I feel?
Triggering.
I love the orange background, Viv.
Well, it's sort of incomplete, but it was the best I could do.
It works.
Okay.
I quite like that you have the hand. It looks like it's holding up your head.
I can probably do that. I will do better one day, but not yet.
It's slow progress, and everyone can watch it develop over time. I like that.
Exactly.
I like that idea.
Baby steps.
Baby steps, exactly. Baby steps. Well, I think what we might do is we will continue the conversation and get on to asking you guys to share some stories in a bit. But maybe, Sam, do you have a story that you could potentially read for us this evening?
Yes, maybe we pick one from earlier in the week from Tara Thompson. So, a story of how I proved my parents wrong, but did I really? Intriguing. Job or uni? The screaming match was loud and clear. Everyone on our street knew. I'm not going to uni, Mum and Dad. To myself, I am staying true. You've got to work twice as hard to be considered half as good. I heard this from the moment I was born. It was the tenet of my childhood. So if being Black and having less meant I had to do way more, I was determined to skip a step and let studying be no more. I watched the spittle form in the corner of my dad's twitching mouth. My mother's lowered head told me this was fast going south. Straightening my spine, I stood firm, as my mind was quite resolute. I was going to earn my way in a paying institute. I became a credit controller, crunching numbers all day long. It was fun for a week, and then I accepted I'd been wrong. Day in, day out, it never changed. It was as unvaried as a flat line. I missed my life as a student. How could I have been so assigned? I was a teen. I thought I knew best and ended up in a job quite gloomy. Needless to say, it played out well. I ended up going to uni.
So it's a little bit weird without Tara here to discuss it, but hopefully she doesn't mind too much. What are your guys' thoughts on that poem, and how did it make you feel?
It's quite as Tara's poems, like the last time, and I feel it's quite relatable actually, at least to me. I mean, I felt a long way like this. I mean, when I finished a fashion school, especially when I moved here, because I was trying to find my place. And at some point, you end up doing lots of other things that diverge from what I actually studied or what I actually kind of wanted to do. And at some point, you just, it's uni or any kind of institution of a learning place is actually your sort of safe place to be, because you know that people don't actually demand as much there from you. Then, I mean, at school, of course, people, you have high demands, but you can, you're allowed to make mistakes, and that's okay because you're learning. I guess that's my point of view, but that's how I would take it. And another thing is we're constantly learning, so it's just like a never-ending sort of cycle. I mean, you never know everything. So I mean, the things that I learned at university like long ago, like a couple of years ago, are probably quite changed nowadays. I mean, probably if we'll be back in school to follow the same course, I'll learn completely different stuff and actually realize that I had learned nothing. And I had
Or
to
you might
relearn
learn
everything.
exactly the same stuff because as soon as a textbook is printed these days, it's
Yes,
out of date.
exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it's quite relatable. Yeah, it's quite interesting.
How about you, Viv?
Yeah, there's a bit of a theme, isn't there, here? Are we sort of people doing stuff they don't really want to do? Yeah, I liked it. I like the rhythm of it. Yeah.
It did flow. I also think what's great about it is there's certain aspects of Tara's life and how she writes the things that she writes in that poem that it's impossible for me to directly relate to. I've never experienced some of the things that she's experienced or her parents have experienced, and the reason they send her that message of you have to work twice as hard to get the same amounts as everyone else. I'm privileged in many ways that I have never had to do that, but there are other areas that you can relate to a lot closer. There are the areas of the struggle, the rebellion against the parents, just for the sake of the rebellion against their parents, even if they're right. And then, as you say, the flow of the poetry was it gets you into it draws you in without forcing you in, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's a complicated subject, isn't it? You know, and speaking as a child and a parent, and the constant like, is this what they want me to do, or should I even be thinking? I mean, I rebelled completely, and I guess because of that, I thought, okay, I'm going to make sure that my girls do exactly what they want to do, because that whole rebellion thing, it doesn't serve anybody, really, does it?
No, not really. Oh, no. How have you girls reacted to being allowed to do what they want to do? Because it's interesting. I've heard some people who have been through similar experiences of rebellion as a kid and then changing their parenting style to allow kids to do what they want, and then kids almost rebel against being allowed to do what they want. I don't know if your kids.
I
have
mean,
done that
I wouldn't
at
say I
all,
was
but-
rebelling against what my parents wanted to do, because I was always free to do whatever I wanted, and hence the fact that they chose fashion. But I was actually rebelling against, I guess, my school and people who thought, oh, why are you doing fashion? You look so intelligent. You know, like, it makes no sense. You should do biology, and you don't look like someone who do fashion. I was not fashionable at all. I mean, okay, thanks. And
creating the fashions and the trends. That's what it is.
yeah, and at some point you see yourself doubting yourself, like, did I make the right choice? I mean, am I going to succeed in life? It's just like, okay, I want to be here, I want to be successful so I can prove them wrong, and not because you really want to do that. You know, at some points, just like that duality and the thought.
That's
So
an interesting point.
and this matter is quite relatable to me, but I mean, yeah. I mean, the parents wouldn't be my parents, but it would be like my school and society and people around me outside my family would be playing the role of the parents in the poem, I would say.
I can see that.
Yeah,
Sorry,
just sort of to clarify, I didn't let my girls do absolutely whatever they wanted to do. But I strive to make a safe place for them where they were celebrated as who they were, not try and force them down a particular route. But you do loads of that subconsciously anyway. I mean, as a mother of 3 daughters, I feel that, and I still feel it now, I've got a very big role model job to do, because I want them to be, well, and they are, I don't just want them to be, they are 3 strong, independent young women. So I think even that you might not say, oh, I think you should do X, Y, Z. They all work hard because they've seen me working hard. They're all striving and ambitious because that's what they've seen me do. So it's not necessarily just, this is what I'm saying, this is what I'm actually doing. So, and unbeknown to me, my middle daughter did exactly the same degree at exactly the same university as I did. Sorry, this is a bit of a brag, but I was the
Sorry
first,
for that.
I was the first person to get a first on that degree. And
Wow.
my daughter spent her whole degree determined that she was going to get a first because she wasn't going to get a lesser degree than I'd got. And I didn't know that until she graduated.
Oh,
Absolutely amazing. I love what you talk about there as well, because I think this is about parenting, but also many other aspects of life and business. Leadership by showing, leadership by example.
Oh, I learned absolutely everything I know about leadership in business when I was at home with my 3 children. It's not, I don't think it's stuff you read in textbooks. I mean, it's like the team dynamic. I had one child, I thought I'd nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Child number 2 comes along. Thought I'd just do the same things. No, you won't. This one's completely and utterly different, and it wants different things. And you've got the dynamic of child number 1 absolutely hates child number 2. She literally said the day that daughter number 2 was born, she was only 20 months old. When I look back, she was still a baby herself. She said, "What have you got that for?"
Our signal's wonderful.
It's one of my favourite lines ever.
Well, I think you'd find her very entertaining, Stefano, eldest daughter. She's very she studied English literature for a degree, so she's very articulate. I used to send her some of my writing, but I don't anymore. She corrects all my punctuation and I think, oh no, I can't put myself through this.
Why exactly have you put this paragraph here? I think that you'd find it would be a lot better if you started with this paragraph. Oh, the pain.
Yeah. I might get her along to next year's storytelling if I can.
Yes, please do. Please do. Yes, we would like to get more people along and sharing stories, and so yeah, she might show us all up, but that's okay.
She can the work then.
Make it her job to do that.
I think we can take some constructive criticism.
Yes, we can. I'll cry afterwards, but I'll get over it. Right. So, talking of constructive criticism, we are not. Hopefully, you're used to us by now. That's not quite how we work here. We're all about sharing the stories and just discussing them. So, would either of you guys like to share a story, to tell a story?
I think I need to shut up for a bit. It's not. You go first.
Actually, I have one. Let me see. Just opening. Actually, started a sort of diary. I mean, an attempt of diary, because I always stop at some point. A few weeks ago, my therapist kind of prescribed me a sort of medication called me time. And although that's I always knew that I needed some me time. But at some point I forgot it. I forgot what it was because I was just caught up in work and doing things for the house. And at some point I kind of didn't know how to do things that I liked anymore. At some point I started to wonder, what is that I actually like? And then instead of sitting on the couch and not succeeding anymore and just trying to focus on watching my favorite series or trying to relax, I tried just to write about random things I saw or felt, and then something came up. Then I started day one with a funny short story. It was Friday evening and I was in the cooking mood. But this time I decided to cook something for the pleasure of savoring and not only for cooking, as I usually did. When I was 6, I once said that our tongues were made for tasting. During an event full of grown-ups, that was perhaps the funniest thing that they heard that day. And today I consider that phrase to be possibly one of the most obvious, if not wisest things I've said so far. Following that thought and running through the kitchen cupboards, I wondered what I was going to cook that night. Then I saw it, a packet of fusilli pasta, and my eyes lit up. I recall the Sundays when my mother would make her delicious pasta dishes. Was that the only reason I was going to make fusilli that night? I thought. Well, maybe I wanted to revive those moments, Homesickness was hitting a little that day. And fusilli has always been one of those dishes that made me smile whenever I saw it at the table. Even when I didn't feel like eating pasta, if it was fusilli, I'll never refuse. Maybe it was the texture. Have you ever thought how fun it is to eat fusilli, by the way? The sensation of tender twists rolling across the palate, capturing the flavor of the sauce, so visually appealing. Oh, so nice. That evening, I savored every mouthful, delighted. When I came back to my senses, I had already finished my plate. I was alone that night. I was alone that day. TV was turned off, not so usual during our dinner time. Then I got up and I walked to the kitchen, feeling like Nigella Lawson. Then, looking at the pan with leftover pasta, I smiled, fantasizing about the next day's dinner. But then I remembered that I would have company. My smile suddenly faded. When was the last time you ever experienced an emotional eating in a good way? That's it.
Love it.
Yeah. I feel hungry.
I bet you do. I wrote it while cooking, actually, so I was like,
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
No.
Actually.
Yeah, brilliant. That's my favorite pasta as well, because you get all the sauce in it.
Yeah, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. I love the shape. I love everything about it. And sometimes I buy those colorful fusilli pasta.
That's brilliant. Really, really cool.
Your love for the pasta definitely came through, and I think we can both appreciate that as people who have a dedicated pasta cupboard with all of the different types of pasta to go with the different types of
Do you?
sauces.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Invite me for dinner. Just across the country. I'm going.
This is something I had to learn when I moved in with someone with an Italian heritage, because before I was like, pasta, just pasta. But now I'm like, the other night we were like, oh no, we need to go to the supermarket to get macaroni to go with the dinner because fusilli won't do for this dish.
I get it.
2 years ago would have been horrified by this.
I'm not saying anything.
Please do share your insights.
I'm a little bit picky with certain types of things and food, that's all. I enjoy. I think certain types of sauces and certain types of Italian dishes are better with the right kind of pasta to go with them. I'm not as picky as Sam.
I'm not picky too, so it's okay.
Penne does work with quite a lot. But it fortunately works with quite a lot. But there are some dishes where I'm like, nah. You need a rigatone. You need to have something with a nice thick hole in the middle, so that you can properly get the sauce to flow through it, and so that you have that rich taste. Yeah, but that's just the way I am. Sharon, hello, welcome. So you just missed a wonderful story about food, which I know is something that you're as obsessed with as us, Sharon.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I'm so terrible with tech. I spent the last 26 minutes trying to find the Zoom link. It's really terrible.
No problem. I think LinkedIn is a little bit of an issue here. It seems to make it as difficult as possible to broadcast events and to get people to actually know what's happening and to get the link to the right place and all of that kind of stuff. So yes, we won't talk about this now, as we've got we're live on YouTube, etc. But maybe at some point we can discuss how to make this event work better so that more people can see it. But actually,
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here finally.
And to have you here.
So that was an incredible story. I love food, and I love the diary message, and I love the thoughtfulness of it. I think that's something which writing does. Often, I think people believe you need to write for someone else, for an audience, but you can be that audience. It can be just for you. It can be when I just want to get stuff down onto paper. And as you said, your therapist told you to have some me time, and that's a good way of spending your me time, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I really enjoyed writing about it. Yeah, and usually about writing something about. Sorry, just go.
Sorry, I was going to ask, because I think you're a native Portuguese speaker. Is that correct? But you write in English like incredibly well. I'm just like, it blows my mind how people can write that well in something that they didn't maybe grow up speaking. Do you also write in Portuguese, or like, how does it feel writing in a different language?
I'm quite familiar with the English language because I can grow up with it. I mean, not in my surroundings, but I studied it since I was a kid and got in touch with it. So it's quite familiar to me. I mean, writing in Dutch would be quite a thing. I didn't do that really often, but I do write. Yes, I do write in Portuguese now and then. I mean, especially if I have a diary, I put a few thoughts down in Portuguese as well. Yeah, but the choice of words is quite a thing as well. Well, it's always different. That different between languages, and in Portuguese is quite a rich language as well, Brazilian Portuguese.
Yeah.
So at some point, translating some expressions is kind of, tricky. So sometimes
idioms are very difficult, aren't they? Idioms are very difficult to get from one language to another. I know sometimes when I try and put things into Italian or into Spanish, most general translations are fine, but if it's something a bit quirky in English, I have no idea how to translate it.
No, exactly. At some point, I have this thing. I'm not sure if you guys have it as well. I mean, me being in Portuguese native, sometimes I feel like writing something in Portuguese because I know how to translate my feelings specifically in that language. And sometimes I feel like, okay, I want to write in English, and things flow better in English. So sometimes I have this moments.
If I may say, I totally revere anyone who's bilingual and can speak in both English and or your native language and English, because in high school I started trying to learn Spanish. I gave up French. I love French, but it was just too difficult for me to, comprehend. And then I did briefly Spanish again in college, and I haven't been practicing. So I totally worship you for being able to write in English.
Thank you.
It's definitely not easy.
No, I tried Spanish as well in high school, and I kind of gave up when I saw the grammar. It's really tricky. It's really difficult.
I think a lot of that also has to do with the way it's being taught. I think often it becomes more complicated because you get taught processes and almost a mathematical way of learning a language, a list of conjugations, which doesn't help anybody to try and memorize things like that by rote, rather than having conversations and repeating things and making mistakes and being taught grammar accidentally and then coming back and learning the conjugations once you've already been practicing it a little bit. I think a lot of the time at school, especially in the I won't judge the whole of the UK, but in my school we didn't get taught in a way that I thought was either fun or, at least for my way of learning, it wasn't very productive. Maybe some people have a very different way of learning and it was perfect for them, but for me it didn't help at all. I needed a different kind of structure. So I don't know if that's possibly for you guys maybe why it was a bit difficult to learn Spanish as well, is because of the way it was being taught, possibly.
I think practicing, I had no one really I learned it in theory, and I still have a lot of those words floating around in my head, but no one to really speak and practice with. So
yeah, that's the thing as well. I mean, for me it was the same. I mean, the way of teaching was not that fun or effective or like something you could enjoy, and apart from that, you always had other things you had to learn and exams and finals. At some point, you're not that motivated to learn another language anyways. And yeah, I think that counts as well.
It does indeed. It does indeed.
Writing about food. I want to hear more of these. It's really good, really fun.
Thank you. I'll try to write more about food. Let's see what's in my cupboards.
I think there's missed something amazing. It looks like I definitely have to listen to this recording and review it again.
I'll make sure to place it somewhere, or either on Instagram or LinkedIn.
Oh.
Then yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be great if you could put it on. Maybe add it to the Storytelling with Puck hashtag. We've still got a couple of days left of that, and so then we can hopefully get people to see a few more people to see it as well. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, we do.
Well, shall we maybe move on to sharing another story? Viv or Sharon, have you got something you might like to share? No pressure if you don't. We have backups, but if you would like to, that would be amazing.
So listen.
I'll go before I've drunk too much wine.
I love it.
Right, I don't think you'll be surprised by this one, Stefano.
Okay.
Okay. Breathe. All her life, Lucy had kept her heart closed. Being constantly told she was a difficult child laid the foundations for the permanent state of protection and self-preservation. The passing years, with their various traumas and unwept tears, wrapped more layers around her heart. But she was strong and determined. She pushed and pushed, but folded her shoulders forwards, protecting her heart. That was then, but this is now. A softly lit room with the aroma of incense floating in the air and thin streaks of morning sunshine gliding down from the roof lights. The occasional floating flecks of dust become illuminated as they dance around the sunbeams. 3 of the walls are a soft matte white, while the remaining one a deep leaden blue. The studio is like a tiny church with its black metal beams spanning the width of the room. In the empty roof space, the roof lights on each side frame the sky as clouds scuttle by. At the top of the room, there is an almost altar-like alcove where the yoga teacher's mat reclines. A tall green plant stands proudly in the corner of the altar, rising from a woven basket as it reaches up to the sunlight. A wide and intricate macrame wall hanging graces the back of the alcove. At the opposite corner is a tall floor-standing lamp It gives off a soft amber glow. Lucy is here again, in her warm and comforting place. She smiles to herself as she breathes in the room, rolling out her soft orange mat. Lucy had begun her yoga journey only a few months ago, but is already finding it hard to believe that this hasn't always been a part of her life. There's a small room leading into the studio. There is a small room leading into the studio where people take off outdoor clothes and shoes, then almost glide barefoot into the studio. Some wear chunky socks for warmth, but they still have the air of floating in as if the room is carrying them aloft. Other people start to ceremoniously lay out their mats and prepare for the practice. Most line up their mats neatly with the dark wood floorboards, but the odd one breaks away from the regime with a jaunty angle. People chat to each other, familiar faces in a familiar space, all looking forward in anticipation to flowing together and finding a time of peace and serenity. Find a comfortable seated posture and we'll begin. Gentle gong-like music flows in the background as they all start to breathe together. Just the simple act of breathing in and out in unison, somehow magically connecting them in that moment. Then the warming up. Cat, cow, bring movement to the lower spine and grounding us all to our mats as we press into its warmth. Let's get moving. Sun salutations, reaching up to the sun, arching backwards, faces parallel to the ceiling, swooping down to fold chest over thighs, then flattening backs and springing back to plank. Pushing elbows in and lowering down, pushing chest forwards and bending back to cobra, lifting tailbones up to reach downward facing dog, checking every detail. Elbows rolled out, fingers spread wide, pressure on the base of the thumb and forefinger, leg muscles taut as heels push down to the mat. The tiny corrections laying the foundations for a deeper posture. Breathing down into the back, feeding energy into the body. The class moves on, more postures added to the flow. Lucy feels her muscles responding, aching. She holds her arms out wide in warrior two, thighs burning, but breathing in and out, she feels strength and lowers closer to her mat. Everybody is still. The energy in that stillness spreads around the room. Flowing into high lunge, then lean forward and arch back, open heart, arms in cactus, pushing up as if trying to lift the ceiling. More intricate stretches and folds and balances, then the practice starts to slow down. Restorative moves, then the final Shavasana, corpse pose. Spine presses into the mat, palms face up, eyes closed, shoulders roll back. The heart is open. Dimmed lights and skylights closed, soulful music and the gentle tracing of the body with the voice. Let your toes relax, then your calves, then thighs, onwards around the body. Lucy feels herself melting into the mat. Her breath is deep and steady. She is aware of the room, but only as something holding her safe. She feels the presence of others, but there is no threat or challenge. They are all in the same tranquil moment. Your heart is open. It's open to others, but first to you. Love yourself, not conditionally, not if you achieve something or when something happens, but now. They slowly return to seated, eyes still closed. Hands pressed together at heart center, warmth flows into Lucy's body and her mind as she bows down her head to her hands. The room is quiet, everyone hanging onto the oasis of calm. Slowly, light comes back into the room. A low hum of chatter begins. People move around, rolling up mats and returning props to the curtain storage area at the back of the room. Thank you, that was lovely. Lucy smiles as she speaks to the teacher. He hugs her. She carries the warmth and connection with her for the rest of the day. Namaste.
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 Wow, I feel like I just did a yoga session with you.
That's the idea.
It's much easier than the yoga I did this morning, just listening to him.
I wish my first yoga lesson ever would be like this.
It can be.
It would have been so nice. But I felt actually destroyed after it.
I loved it. And let me, I wrote a whole bunch of stuff. I said, well-paced story. And you spoke about a space. It's a place to breathe, art or create or whatever it is you want to do. When you speak about breathing, that's what I thought about. I love the lovely imagery. As you're reading, I'm seeing everything happening, lots of showing. And then I can see this room with Lucy and her yoga class. It's as if I'm there. I'm jealous. I want to be there. And I think at the end where you sort of like gave us the yoga routine, that in itself is poetry. So nothing is wasted in this story. And it just flows so lucidly and it's just a beautiful written piece. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. I feel a bit emotional now.
But it really flowed in the way that a yoga class has a flow. So you start off sort of gentle and then it gets faster paced and, you really work out your body and then you kind of slow down at the end. And I sort of felt that as you were speaking, and even my breath changed a bit depending on the pace of where you were and the imagery that you used. I kind of was creating, this imaginary yoga studio in my head. So yeah, it's incredible.
I completely agree. I don't have much more to add other than, as you say, my posture changed as you were speaking. My legs, my feet got grounded, so that I was in a better position to breathe and to relax. As you say, it felt like I was in a yoga class, which I haven't done for too long. I need to get back to, as we've discussed with. So, yeah, it's phenomenal. I felt like I was there. I mean, this. I say this every time you read a story, but it's because it's true. The way you set the scene, it just takes me there. As soon as you start speaking, as soon as you start connecting the dots. But I think something that makes it more powerful is when you read certain pieces of writing that people have been taught to set a scene, they'll set a scene in a way that's, if I was describing this room, there's a lamp to my right, there is a fan to my left, there is a guitar case, and there is a laptop, which is a very straightforward way of setting a scene, not the most exciting. But the way I picture everything from your writing is it's all part of the story. It all matters. It's all the next bit of importance within the story. I said way more than I was going to say. But yeah. But I think that's what takes me there. It's the fact that every single note matters. And I call it note because it sounded like music to me. It's every single note matters to the piece you're writing. So yeah.
It's really like a Studio Ghibli movie. That's you said every detail matters. So just the same in those kinds of movies, so relaxing. So you don't have to think about anything. You're just there.
Thank you all so much. It kind of I wrote it after the workshop on whatever day it was, because I just thought, you know what, you just need to write. And my yoga journey has been like it's transformational, and I'm only like right at the beginning of it, but it's changed my attitude to life, my posture, my confidence. So it is, listening to you responding to that makes me feel very emotional, because it's such a positive thing that I found, and that connection thing.
Yeah.
You're standing still in a posture and it's hard, your muscles are tight and it's hard, but everybody else is doing exactly the same thing. And there's something about, like, you've opened up your heart and everybody else has opened up theirs, and you're completely connected to everybody.
Yeah, you definitely feel that connection when you're with other people doing the same thing in the same way that maybe some people get that from going to church or being with 100 people singing the same song, or there's something about that. And even I'm doing a lot of yoga online classes, and I still get that, not anywhere near to the same extent as if you're in the same room, but I find it much more energizing than going and doing a class on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I can't really explain it, but I just don't really get anything from it. But if it's a live class and there's some feedback, you feel some kind of energy, because you know there's people all around the world doing the same pose as you at the same time.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
A question that
Just
popped
give you
into
some
my
tips.
mind, if I may ask. Oh, where's my okay. All right, I'm here again. Was I thought Viv was actually a yoga teacher. The way, right? She seems so informed with that piece. Do you teach, or are you a yoga
No,
student?
I'm a student. I've only been doing it since September.
Oh my goodness.
Oh wow.
I just remember
Nice.
a few bits, that's all. I mean, loads of it, you hear it over and 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 over again. I was surprised myself how much I'd actually was able to throw down again.
Mm.
Mm.
You're just a great writer, so
Thank you. That means a
Yeah.
lot.
Definitely.
yeah. You probably could write a book on your yoga experience, how you're evolving as a yoga student, or how is it changing your life?
Mm. Yeah.
Seriously.
The reactions.
Easily.
Yeah. I know I want to write a book. I definitely want to write a book.
You should. You can. Writing like that?
We need you to, because we all need more. I think that's the message you should take
Yes.
from this.
Yeah,
No pressure.
no pressure at all. But you better
Right,
get
I've got to
started.
go now. Sorry, I've got some writing to do.
We'll take the spotlight away from you for a little while, then, Viv,
Yes,
so you can
please.
breathe and
And
get
I'll
the
just have a
yoga
little
posture back.
cry to myself. It's okay.
But Sharon, another great writer. I know that already. I
Oh
don't
my
know if
goodness.
the rest of the guys here have seen as much of your work as I have. So maybe you could share something if again, there's no pressure. You don't have to, but if you would like to, that'd be wonderful.
I can definitely so, but I feel almost like a rascal because it's such a week, so I have not been able to really refine, but I still want to read something, and I'm going to read 2 very short pieces, and I'll show you how they're not related, but maybe they are. The first piece is actually a poem by William Blake. Okay, so I'm cheating, and then I'll read a piece by me.
That's not cheating. Not
That's
cheating in
not
any
cheating.
way, shape, or form. We love all stories and all poetry. So go
Yes.
for it.
So his piece is great. I don't know what mine is, but here it goes. So his poem is entitled The Angel. I dreamt a dream. What can it mean? And that I was a maiden queen, guarded by an angel mild. Witless woe was ne'er beguiled. And I wept both night and day, and he wiped my tears away. And I wept both day and night, and hid from him my heart's delight. So he took his wings and fled. Then the morn blushed rosy red. I dried my tears and armed my fears with 10,000 shields and spears. Soon my angel came again. I was armed, he came in vain. For the time of youth was fled, and gray hairs were on my head. Okay, so that's William Blake's. And here goes a piece that I'm working on. And my piece is called, I wrote this probably about 15 years ago. And this piece is called A Rescued Maid's Banquet. In my mid-50s, after sweet hope had frustrated and quelled my heart, and I had with grudge given up on elusive love. Love came charging after me. On a tranquil day, when I least expected it to appear, my elated heart fluttered. The years of deprivation had been long, yet my starved heart was pacified, resolved to stay an honorable maid, unlived, forgotten, and locked away. But now love had smiled pleasantly at me, suddenly depositing at my side a sweet man who's promised to march me triumphantly down a flower-paved aisle with pomp and flair beneath the old oak tree. He will, he said, if I don't prove too frigid for his taste. I'll defy absent love that's made me coy. Not even in youth had I ardent love, but I'm determined to wear his golden ring. Tell the butcher to save me a fatted calf and a dozen of his Cornish hens. Baker, bake me a strawberry cake with lots of cherries round the top. Tell the last Sally to pluck wild flowers, to pin on my love's new purple suit. Ring the bells. I'll put on my white satin. Everyone's invited to a rescued maid's banquet. Come in a jacket or gown. My hair is regal, my lily gown flows, yet today's the day for my groom's no show. And age won't survive a wait. Oh why is my groom not here? I'm the maid of elusive. Suitors betrodden to doom love affairs. So I had the last portion is handwritten, and I'll tell you about it. It's a bit choppy because I read the first poem that's nicely typed up, and someone said, "No, Sharon, you've left us hanging," because I ended it at "come in a jacket or gown." And they said, "You left us hanging." And so I'm now creating this ending part with "my hair is regal." And so there's lots of work to be done. So there it goes.
Firstly,
Brilliant.
one of the most interesting things is, to people who don't know William Blake's poetry, and if you hadn't mentioned at the beginning that you were reading two pieces, I wonder who would have known that one was William Blake and one was you. They were both spectacular pieces. I'm going to stop speaking for a while because I'm always way too opinionated. Let Viv and Libra have a comment. And Cyan.
I mean, just what you said, I think both writing styles are quite similar indeed. I mean, yeah. It's brilliant piece of writing. I mean, I'm curious about what is yet to come.
Well, what's yet to come is a lot of editing on my version, because that will be in my first poetry volume, and so it's a little rough. So a lot of tweaking, and so that it flows lucidly. And then when I read in a more cohesive way. So.
I'll be placing it on LinkedIn or anywhere you could read after that. Oh, I think you.
I should not have even read it because it's work in progress. So
Okay,
you'll read it in my book.
Oh,
in my
I'd like a
published
link
book.
when it's. Yeah, let me know when it's ready. I mean,
I'm interested in the like the concept of writing of taking a poem and then writing your version of it. What made you come to that?
Actually, for sure. So my piece was written 15 years ago, and today I happened upon William Blake's because because I was on Prepare, I was just going to read Williams. And then I said, but wait a minute, I have this poem I wrote that's sort of like
wow,
similar. And so I thought I would read mine, although I knew it was a little not fully prepared. So yes, I hadn't read his maybe I've read it in college or so, but
Yeah.
his did not influence mine.
So it's just a subconscious.
Mine
Yeah.
was just silly because I wrote that in my youth, and this person is the character is in her 50s, or I think
Yeah,
later.
mid-50s.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's
It is.
yeah. And it's definitely like what's happening? What because I thought you were going to end when you got to the come in a gown. And then you then you carried on, and I was like, oh good.
So that's important. That's important. What did you all think? Do you think that the ending come in a gown that's good enough?
No, I think you want to know what happens next. Yeah, and you kind of, it's building up, isn't it? And you know, the excitement's there, and she's found this man, and and then it's like, boom. Ain't that life, you know? Yeah, it's great. Really, really cool.
Okay, so I should refine the piece that the ending that I've just added in, leave that in, do you think? Or
My 2 pence is there is no should.
Mm.
Do what you feel is right for your poem, because lots of people will want to find out more. Lots of people will, most people will want to find out more. But for some people, the cliffhanger will be that moment where they can just go, and then all of the thoughts will go through their head for the next year. And they'll keep coming back to the poem and going, but what did happen? Why? Why has it been left like that? Do I have to work this out myself? Maybe I have to experience it. God, maybe I need to experience it. That's the only way I can find this out. And other people will go, but just tell me, and they want to find out the ending. But what other people think is not the point. The point is, what do you think about your writing? What do you think about that particular poem? And where do you feel it should go or stop? That's just my 2 cents on it. Rather than listening to us about where your poem should go, I think it needs to come from inside, personally.
I will remember that.
I should say both Stefano and I do like to leave people on a cliffhanger. If you've read anything we've published this week, Stefano read me something before it was published on LinkedIn. We actually made it in the video. And when he read it, I was like, what? I was literally like in the middle of the night wondering what would happen next. But then, then I probably thought about it much more than I would have if he just told me what happened next.
I really enjoyed your pieces, I am telling you. And the acting, I did not know it was Stefano. I wrote to him, I said, Stefano, was that you? So that's why my comment, I was a little embarrassed, because I'm like, oh my goodness, if I say too much to the wrong person. So that's why I barely said much. And then he told me he was the brilliant actor, and you were the video.
Wow.
The person
I just set up the camera and then walked away. So I didn't distract you.
And then
I should say, I never said I was a brilliant actor.
You're multi-talented, and then Cyan, your piece. Oh my goodness. Lovely.
Yes.
And did you drink all those beers at evening, or?
That's the only reason I was able to film it. I was already drunk. No, that's over a long period of time. We have a little bottle box, so I was babbling through it before I started.
I love this. Yeah.
You know, when you write and you leave a cliffhanger, do you know, or is it one of those kind of sliding doors things, or is it just deliberately like, okay, I'm going to leave it there and let people decide?
My personal way of writing, I quite like having 50 different potential endings, and so in my head I have a few different things that happened, but I quite like for the reader to, or the viewer, if it's, I guess, the piece that I acted the other day, to have their own version, and as you say, to kind of wake you up in the middle of the night and go, what did she do? I quite enjoy that. I think I enjoy watching that kind of thing and reading that kind of thing. So that's why I also quite like writing in that way. But I don't always do it. Sometimes there is an ending.
I think
Sometimes something happens.
it spurs a lot of great conversation, and cliffhangers are like amazing in college setting, in classrooms, or just in groups and in book clubs and all that sort of thing. I believe, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and the thing with literature is that you deconstruct, and no one is ever right or wrong. So,
Yeah, that's a really nice point, actually. Yes.
I have
Um,
written a sort of the continuation of it. I mean, at least I gave it a go. I mean, I thought
Really?
I
love
kind of
it.
wonder because
Creating,
I'm
like,
really curious. I'm like, okay, what's actually
We're
going on?
creating
What?
fan fiction
Yeah,
now.
fan fictions indeed.
I also had an idea that I might, I obviously wrote the same story from the other character's point of view, but I was thinking that I might write it again based on the same facts, but with a different tone to see, because you're sort of based on the tone and the pace of the story, you're leading the readers to think in a certain way, maybe that something quite terrible has happened. But if you write the same set of facts with a different tone, it could be a much more lighthearted story.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's a challenge I'll set myself in the next few days.
Oh, the readers will accept either.
Anyway, would you like to read? Because now I'm interested.
Oh yeah, I read as a sort of observer's point of view. So I'm neither the lady or the man. So
This is interesting.
let me see. Yes. Well, still cold, shaken by that brief moment, she found herself again walking on layers of unexpected March snow, as unexpected as she entered his place a few minutes back. Relieved to have shared that last word with him before she left forever. Silent was that night. Some distant murmurs. No one will notice me here, she thought. Eyes in despair, not knowing who to call, what to say. The only thing she knew was that she was ready to break free from all the pain and suffering that prison kept her for so long. For a brief moment, she even regretted not telling him. Should have shared a proper goodbye. It didn't matter anymore. She would soon be forgotten, and he would finally move on. He would be fine. Yes, she knew that. She knew he would regain his will to live again. Eventually, he would get up, clean that grubby couch, and quit drinking like a fish. He would go back to hiking like they did before. He would remember her fondly, and at some point, he would manage to smile again. It's just a shame it had to end like this. Yes, it was indeed a shame. They had so much in common. She couldn't imagine things would ever escalate to the point of, I better erase the past for good, she muttered in tears. And she did what she had to do. Everything would be just fine. Another cliffhanger.
Oh,
Amazing.
unbelievable.
Oh, I love how one short
Thank you.
story has taken on a new life.
Yeah. It's like we're all writing it together now.
Yeah. On to the other fanfic. Next one.
Oh, that brings me a lot of joy. I don't know what to say. It was so well written.
Thank you.
And yeah, my character's gone in a world that I didn't know they were going to go in.
I'm curious. I kept thinking, is I'm sorry, how do I
Alifrey.
Alivri,
Thank
is
you.
your story related to Stefanos and science? They're so similar.
Yes, it will be kind of sort of continuation. I don't know. I mean, but I wrote from my own perspective, so I have no idea what's in their minds. I have no idea what she did still. So I kind of wrote something just for something on paper. You know.
Somebody needs to continue at this and tell us what she did.
Exactly. That's the whole point. I still don't know. So I kind of just left it hanging.
What I also always find really interesting is the details that people pick out based on the original story.
Mhm.
So I heard Stefano's story twice. I don't think I even read it. I just heard you say it out loud. And then without looking at the original, I just wrote my version. So there were some details that I completely missed. Like I completely forgot that she kisses him on the way out. So my version doesn't mention that, which then makes it seem like, well, to my character, that wasn't important. But to him, it was like, oh my God, she kissed me. And everyone seems to pick up on the dirty sofa.
Yeah, that detail stays in most people's.
Yeah. Yeah. And the shorts, I think. I need to read it again. Everyone kept talking about that.
Yeah, they've taken on the life of their own.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's
Wow.
what Puck does. Storytelling with Puck.
It is.
Yeah. No, I love that connection, and interestingly, to connect to another connection, when Viv, you were talking about earlier the yoga connection, and you mentioned the other areas. I think that's what storytelling does too. It's a different type of connection, but especially when you have a chance to get together and to share stories with each other, it bonds you in a way that not much else can. I think it's about being in the same room at the same time, but it's also just about sharing some of the same emotions and just feeling stuff.
Yeah, and the confidence thing as well. You know, you all come on and you're like, ooh, what are people going to think? And then you kind of go, well, does it really matter? And that's kind of where I've got to with my yoga. At least, you know, I think I'm doing it right. I'll get corrected if I'm not. But it's all about progressing, isn't it? And having people around you to kind of lift you as you progress.
Yes,
Exactly.
Rather than just sitting all alone in your writer's garage and oh, this is no good, this is no good.
I have a challenge in my mind. I have a challenge. I really just cannot suppress it. A challenge for us all. How about it? Next year's 2024. We all either have a collection in Viv's case in a livre. I hope I said that correctly. You have either a really decent draft of a collection of short stories, and Cyan and Stefano, you guys are such pros. You need to have a book by then. And I definitely must have my poetry. I'm serious, guys. I definitely must have I must be reading from my published poetry book next time we meet in 2024. How about that?
I love
I
it.
like it. We can keep each other accountable.
Yeah.
Yes.
When we get off air, actually, before because there might be people watching on YouTube, so we shouldn't go into this in too much depth right now. But when we get off the live YouTube, yeah, maybe we can talk a little bit about ideas for accountability over the next year. I do like the sounds of that very much. But for now, as we are broadcasting. Does anybody else have a story another story they would like to share? I know I've already put the spotlight on you a couple of times, so don't worry if not. But
No, unfortunately, I only brought the one.
it's okay. One's very good. I know it's an exceptional story.
What's the weather like where you all are?
Wet.
Is it wet?
Maybe.
Is it cold?
Yeah.
It's not that
It's
cold.
near zero. Not freezing, but near zero.
There's a reason why I'm asking. If I can find a very short poem, anyone can read in the meantime. I will read it quickly.
Okay, maybe in that case, while you're finding it, we can read a piece by. We actually read a piece by Clive in the last session, and he's followed it up with a part 2. But you don't have to have read part 1 to understand part 2. He's a brilliant writer. He's not able to make the Zooms, so we're taking on his voice a little bit and reading for him. Would you like to read it?
May 2021. Coming out of lockdown. Can you play Peppa Pig with me? God, really? Does she not know? I'm 50 years old now. But those eyes, those please will you play with me? Toddler eyes. Who could refuse? Okay, go on then. Yay! I laugh, but just to myself. She's supposed to be pearly. And come to think of it, I'm supposed to be working. But if the simplest of things can give so much joy, who am I to deny someone that moment? Especially when that someone is my youngest. With caffeine count at max and a newfound burst of energy, I'm ready to get stuck in and drag this lockdown lump of a body around the floor until one of us gets bored. I know who my money's on. But hang on, where's George? Oh, he's missing, but it's okay. Okay. Okay? It most certainly is not, oh bloody K. This set cost 40 quid. I'm sure lots of parents can relate to that one.
I love the way Clive ended that. It's not quite a cliffhanger, that's the wrong word, but I was expecting like the next bit of where that was about to go. He just says, this set got 40 quid, and then it was just, oh yeah, no, I can feel the typical parent's anger. What did you guys think?
Very realistic. It's hilarious. The part with the dead body, the kid, and I can just envision the kid not wanting to move, and the parent having to pull the kid. I could just like see that scene.
Yeah, almost in the room with him doing it there. Yeah, I could picture that too.
Yeah, I'm not a parent, but I found it really funny. I mean, the end got me as well.
This joyous, beautiful moment that ends up with like, oh, for God's sake, they lost the toy.
Well, Sharon, have we given you enough time? Like you, have you found your piece?
Yes, I found it, and I will tell you, one of the things that we know is that whatever it is we read, we ought to prep and prepare and all that stuff. So I'm just totally unprepared today. Let's just have fun, have a go at it.
It's all about fun.
No need to prepare for this.
No, it's all about fun.
So listen, it's 18 degrees in New York, and the title of this poem is The Winter Chill, written many, many years ago. I, looking through my window frame, wondered about the chill that suddenly from winter came to freeze away my will. For nights and mornings come and go with freeze that numbs my feet, and I survive to tell the woe wrapped tight within a sheet. Yet winter gets a passing grade, for it brings trendy days, and strutting ladies will parade, tuck spurs along their ways. Men parade their haughty heads, balancing new felt hats they'll swap at night for comfy beds. We must accept the facts. Some live to feel the winter thrill. Trend will thrive in the freeze. Some may never accept the chill that brings them bitter breeze. That's it, guys.
That's brilliant. Does make me feel a bit cold. I'll be one of the ones who accepts it. I should say, for those who work in Celsius, 18 degrees probably seems relatively warm. I'm trying to think that 18 degrees is in 18 degrees Fahrenheit is in Celsius. Anyone know? Anyone have any translations?
It's -7.
There you go, -7. Wow,
-7.
that's cold. Yeah.
Freezing.
I was like, I know 18 is cold. I was trying to work out exactly how cold. So, yeah. -7 is
Will
Yeah,
this
in the
appear
double
in
digits.
in your book?
I'm sorry?
Is this one going in your book?
Yes, it will be.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
There's something really lyrical about your writing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think
Especially
it's
you reading it as well. It's like, I don't know. I guess once we've heard you read, then if we read the other poems, we'll kind of keep your voice in our heads, I think, which is a lovely thing.
Mm. Mm. So then what you're saying is very important for authors to read their work, right?
I think so.
yeah.
Hence what we're doing here today.
Yeah, I guess so, yes.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of poetry that it really adds to it by hearing it spoken out loud in the way that it was intended. And then also hearing other people's versions of it, of how do they read it and what emotion do they bring to it. But yeah, I think it brings it alive.
Yes.
Actually, if I may say, Syed, you did a splendid job reading Washing My Feet. I said, oh my goodness, brilliant. I thought, oh my gosh. So it's lovely for sure for an author to hear other people read their work and read it in such a great way. So
Thank you. I'm glad I did it justice, hopefully.
you did it justice, yeah.
And I imagine in quite a different way to how you might have done it.
No, actually, I like, as I said, honestly, those 3 written in maybe 2 hours, they're meant to be quick, not to be tweaked, and so I like the way you read it, exactly the way I would have. Yeah.
Good. Just very different accents, I think. It still sounds different.
Yeah.
It's interesting, actually, when we talk about reading aloud, that the beginning of Storytelling with Puck, the original reason we started Storytelling with Puck 5 years ago, was because of National Storytelling Week in the UK. That's what inspired it. And National Storytelling Week in the UK is all about reading aloud. It's about getting kids at school to read. It's about getting to people to read in bars and cafes and pubs. And it's meant to be a week of just people sharing stories and connecting and getting together. But we saw it was solely meant to be for reading aloud and for sharing stories aloud. And it was also solely in the UK. And there weren't that many business people doing it on LinkedIn. So that's kind of what the inspiration was for Storytelling with Puck, actually. So it all comes from reading aloud. And our first one didn't have Zoom sessions. We had no Zoom evenings at all, and no get-togethers like this. It was only the LinkedIn part and only and Facebook and some of the other social media. But then we evolved. Or at least Storytelling with Puck evolved. I may have gone backwards.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I look forward to this every year. This is my 2nd year, so I'm looking forward to next year. So keep doing
Me
that,
too.
right?
Thank you.
And I met you, Olivier. I am so
Olivier.
terrible.
My name is not the
Yeah.
easiest, I know.
I remember you from last year. You read
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah, it was my
Yeah.
first year as well. Yeah.
See?
Well, we're exceptionally pleased to have all of you guys here. I think what we might do is, if this is okay with you, is maybe read 2 more stories, and then we will say goodbye for the evening. But we are back. For everyone who's watching and for you guys here, we are back on Monday evening for the final Zoom session of Storytelling with Puck 2023. So if you can make it, if you can be here live, if you can tell stories, hopefully anyone who's watching and was maybe a little bit scared to come along to the Zoom, which I understand completely, will have seen that it's a very friendly environment. We're not judgmental in any way, shape or form. We're here to encourage each other and just to tell stories and to get that wonderful feeling. So I personally enjoy it. I think you guys here all enjoyed it, and hopefully if you come along, other people come along, you'll enjoy it too. But thank you guys very, very much for being here and for sharing your stories today.
Thank you for having us.
And we will finish with a story by Julia Farkas. She was here on the workshop the other day. And then we will have one last story, which is taken directly from the workshop, actually, which I wrote as part of the workshop. So sorry, Viv, you've already heard this.
All right. Oh, nice.
Okay.
Turmoil. Sometimes it's quiet, soft, like a whisper. Sometimes it comes as a riot, leaving you bare like a drifter. And once in a while, it screams, taking the shape of your darkest dreams. Who is to blame when you can't contain what is deep down inside? When it comes like a flood, drowning everything around. When it comes like a fire, leaving in ashes even the greatest empire. When it comes as a storm, just to break every norm. When it comes like the wind, swift and nimble, seeking to rescind. When it makes the earth quake, tearing down all you can't seem to forsake.
So powerful. Thank you very much, Julia, for sharing that story with Storytelling with Puck. We hope that we did it justice reading today. Here is a final story for the evening. It is called Grubby Hands. Get your grubby hands off him. It was his fault. He was pressing all the buttons at the same time. Oh, I've got to be somewhere. Sangeeta grabbed Alessandra by the hair. Her long blonde locks weren't attached as well as she would have liked. Still holding on to half of the clump she had pulled out, Sangeeta covered her face, expectant of an attack, but Alessandra froze. She let go of the boy and slumped into the corner of the lift. I'm sorry, kid. How old are you? Max swallowed. He looked at the stranger who was recently wringing his neck, perplexed. He had been told never to talk to strangers, but the people who told him that weren't around anymore. He'd spent the last 2 years of his 8 years on Earth alone. He looked at Sangeeta's green eyes. They matched his. She had stepped in to save him. He wondered if he could trust her, but he'd been bitten before by the so-called Saviour Brigade. What about you, sweetheart? How old are you? Here, take it back. I didn't mean to rip it out. Oh, I'm 21. Oh, and your age, I guess. Sangeeta felt her stomach push it up to her eyes, but just as she was about to shout, she laughed instead. You've got a while before you turn 65, my love. What's so important anyway? Where do you have to be? Can't you call them? Check your phone. No signal in here. We're at the basement level. Don't worry. I'm sure I'll get another appointment. Silence passed through the room for 15 minutes or so. Looks were exchanged, but the conversation was dry. There were so many questions, but it seemed no one was ready to answer them. Max had curled up into a little ball. He was so far into the corner of the lift that he could have been a part of it. He curled his moustache. It made him look cuter to the ladies in the room, but he had meant it to be a master disguise. Finally, he rubbed his right hand through his spiked brown hair and spoke. Can anyone else hear that ringing? There's no ringing, my love, Sangeeta said in a soothing voice. The alarm has stopped, at least for us, but I'm sure someone is looking for us now. No, not that ringing. There's this. Oh, don't worry. Sangeeta didn't know what the ringing sound was, but she wanted to distract Max anyway. Hey, do you see my short black hair? Max nodded. Well, that's not its real colour. I used to spike my hair like yours. Thought I was really cool, but I could never have been as cool as you. Anyway, that was what I fought for things. You look like a fighter, kid. Are you a fighter? What's your name? Max's eyes narrowed. Max. And I'll fight if I have to. He looked at the far corner. Alessandra stood up. I'm a real fighter. I'm fighting off something that none of us can be. Well, I didn't think we could. They've got this new trial. And I could have been on it if we weren't stuck in this fucking lift. Fucking arseholes, get us out of here. Sangeeta wasn't up for a fight in that moment. She knew Alessandra's pain. Whoa, come here, come here. Alessandra breathed easier and accepted Sangeeta's embrace. She opened her eyes and looked again at the far corner. Is he okay? The large man had his legs spread with no consideration for the other's space. His long white beard would have reached his toes if he had been standing. He could have cut it off and replaced the hair that no longer sat on his head. None of that mattered to Max. He was more concerned about the mid-40s man's blue, piercing eyes that hadn't moved from his direction the whole time they'd been in the lift. Max didn't budge when the lift dropped the meter. As the power flowed through, he saw old Jim get up, still staring. Alessandra could sense something was wrong, but she didn't care. She had to get to her appointment. When the doors were prized open, Max darted through the legs of a firefighter and ran as fast as he could. Alessandra tried to leave, but Jim's scream stopped her in her tracks. Jim had walked straight into Sangeeta's knife, not even noticing it was there. My family, Jimmy boy. You never touch my family.